So moving on to, I skipped chapter 2. Anyone know why? Production possibility frontier. Any guys remember that? Who here did economics in high school? Hands up. Do you guys remember the production possibility frontier? Did you do it? Do you know what the hell it means? No. See, I don't even think too many people that do it in first year economics actually understand what the hell a PPF means, and even less of them know what it's for by the end of the subject. So I actually don't think it's a very useful concept. The other problem is, of course, it's not used in the rest of the book. So why the hell teach it? I think the only concept you should be teaching in a textbook are the concepts that you will then be using later on to solve problems. If you're not using it to solve problems, don't teach it in the first place. Okay. So I skip straight to chapter 3, which is about markets. And markets are important. This is kind of the core. Everything in micro, almost everything in micro, can be done with the one simple market diagram we'll get up to. That's it. You just have to learn that one diagram, and you're pretty much done. Micro. So how do we introduce it? Well, we introduce it by talking about the supply and demand curves. Right? The supply and demand curves, you can derive them. So in higher level economics, you do derive them. You use things that you might see later on called utility functions and cost functions, production functions, blah, 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 blah. At this level of economics, we don't teach any of that stuff. It's just too complicated. All we do is teach this, the law of demand. And it's not really a law. It's like I'd be really surprised if this weren't true type of thing. That's what economists mean by law here. And it's not a law in the sense that someone in Parliament enacted this law and said all things will behave like this. It's just something that, if an economist came along and this were not true, the economist would go, oh, that's really interesting. I'll go and see what the hell's going on here. Because this shouldn't normally happen, right? It's like, if I have this book and I let it go, my guess is, right, the book's going to hit the ground. Now, I'd be bloody surprised if I had the book there and I let it go, and what did the book do? If it rose to the ceiling or if it stayed in place, I'd be really, really, really surprised. And then I'd look and I'd go, why on earth is that book rising, right? So if I got the book here and I let it go, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it stays where it is. That's in a sense that this law of demand holds. It's not something that's absolute. It's something that I'd be really surprised if it didn't happen. And if it didn't happen, then I'd look and I'd see what's going on to prevent it from happening. And my guess is something funny would be going on, like there's a table there. Or the book is attached to a hot air balloon or an airplane. So that's why it doesn't fall to the ground. It just keeps going. So yeah, so it's not an act of Parliament, and it's not, it's not a law in the sense of it's always true. It's a law in the sense of it's most likely true. And there are some special circumstances in which it doesn't happen. But when it doesn't happen, then something funny's going on that's a little bit deeper than just the simple things that we're looking at in micro. Okay. So this is an illustrated version of law of demand. We don't, we've got the law there. It basically says that when prices go up, the amount of stuff that people want to buy, of whatever we're measuring here, goes down. So in this case, we're thinking about this is a market. This is showing a demand curve for something. Be some sort of goods. Now, what can that be? And the economists will tell you, well, anything. And I'll show you later what anything can mean. But here what we're saying is, let's just imagine that this is a market for something. People go into this market and they buy things. We might then ask, well, at different prices in the market, how much do people want to buy? That's what the demand curve is telling you. As the price changes, you just have to go along, down that graph. Go across to where the demand curve is, go down to the horizontal axis, and that tells you how much people want to buy. The curve is downward sloping like this, meaning as we drop the price, people want to buy more of the stuff. As we raise the price, people want to buy less. Does this accord with intuition? Do people buy more of something if it's cheaper? Well, why else would stores have sales? If they could encourage people to buy more stuff by raising the price, why would you have sales? And why not have, it's going to cost more over here? Come to Harvey Norman, we'll charge you twice as much for fridges as everyone else. Right? Harvey Norman doesn't say that. Harvey Norman says, come over to Harvey Norman, we'll make you a deal and we'll cut it cheaper than the guy next to us. That's all that this sort of model is presenting. It's just representing the logic that if things are cheaper, people tend to buy more of it. So when we see something like that, a change in price, we call this a shift along the demand curve. Right? So there's two possible things that happen really with a market diagram like this. One is that you have a price rise or price fall. The other thing is something other than price changes. So this is where we get to this idea of ceteris paribus. Right? So unfortunately, ceteris paribus is one of these really ugly black words. So ceteris paribus is one of these really ugly black words that people in academia think make them look smarter because they use them. It's the, haha, I know the meaning of this word and you don't, type of tactic used in debating. If I know this meaning and you don't, then I must be smarter than you, therefore I'm right. So ceteris paribus basically means nothing else changes except price. That's what I want you to be thinking about whenever you see ceteris paribus. It's the only place in which it gets invoked in these sorts of models. It just means only price changes. That's all it means whenever you see it here. Right, so if I could, I would go through and erase ceteris paribus every damn time it appears in these stupid textbooks. Because all it does is seeks to intimidate people by using words they don't know. So if only the price changes, then we have movements up and down that curve. Right? At a price of $4, people will buy 750. At a price of $3, people will buy 1,000. And if you went down to 2 and 1, you could also read off the curve. Right? So at $2, right, a market price of $2, people will buy more. At a market price of $1, people will buy even more. You just have to go down the graph and read it. And when people say, you know, the price rises, ceteris paribus in the book, all they're saying is only the price rises and nothing else.